Good morning. Happy Black Friday. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I know I did. It's always great to be around a bunch of family and friends and good cheer and to share thanks and gratitude. What a great day. So today becomes the law of the jungle as we're out there fighting for the best deals. I hope you're enjoying whatever Black Friday means to you. For me, I get to share Apollo's U.S. Housing Outlook, which is one of my favorite reports that comes out every year. And if you guys follow me, you know I'm a true fanboy of Dr. Torsten Slok. I simply think he's been the most accurate economist in the last 2 years. He's accurately, forecast inflation, interest rates, housing, the economy, GDP, and so forth. He's been spot on the last 2 years when most of the people that we follow have been completely wrong, including the Fed. And so I've come to have massive amount of respect for Dr. Slok. And I love his daily newsletter, the Daily Spark. Sometimes it's just a short quip. Sometimes it's a video. Sometimes it's a long study or report. Today I'm going to share, as I said, the U.S. Housing Outlook. And this is 121 pages of very, very digestible charts and graphs and data. And if you're in housing, if you're in real estate or mortgage, this is a treasure trove of data for you to internalize, to speak about, to speak to really help us come across as true experts. And I trust his data. Now, I'm gonna disagree with some of his data as we go along, but I encourage you, check out this report. It's super easy. I'll show you. It's super easy to digest. It's like charts like this. The first chart, U.S. homes are getting smaller, median size of new family homes decline. And so you get a 20-year history of the size of homes. I think that's pretty interesting. Now, that's not one of my top 30 slides. It's not even my top 10. I'm going to share my top 10 with you. But what I want to do first is I want to share what Torsten thinks is the most interesting facts about the U.S. housing market. And here's his 10 most interesting facts from the data. And as you go through the charts, pay attention beneath each chart what the data source is, whether it's NAR, or the Federal Reserve, or if it's FHFA. See who the sources are, because that's what you really want to check out, is how good is the data. But here's his 10 facts. 1, U.S. homes are getting smaller. The size of new homes being built has declined by 12% since 2016. 2, the median age of all home buyers is now 49 years old, up from 31 in 1981. Of course, we're living longer too. 3, our home price model predicts that house prices will increase 10.8% over the incoming year. That's the number I want to talk about the most, because I have a hard time believing that number. So I'm really conflicted. I'm conflicted because I believe in Torsten. I believe in Dr. Slok. He's been the most accurate for 2 years. I don't see how we have 10.8% appreciation next year. I have no idea. He makes the case in his slides, in the 121 slides. There's a section on why houses will appreciate. He has like 8 supporting slides to support his argument. I still have a hard time seeing it, but I also have a hard time betting against Dr. Slok. Now, I'm much more in line with Altos Research, who's forecasting 3.5% appreciation. I think that's probably correct. Mike Simonson's probably correct. His argument is very persuasive. But once again, I can't turn my back on Dr. Slok because he's been right. And he's been 100% right about inflation, 100% right about interest rates. So anyway, that's number 3. Number 4, 40% of homes don't have a mortgage. 5, this is interesting, the average number of homes sold per real estate agent every year is 21, down from 54 in 2004. Now, that's very interesting. 6 is household equity in real estate is at a record high of 73% of housing values. And by the way, we can get confused by average DTI, debt to income, on houses versus the equity. The difference has to be with homes that does not have a mortgage versus homes that do. 7 is a record high. 36% of Americans say they would rent if they're going to move. Okay. 8 say more than half of all mortgages outstanding have an interest rate below 4%. As a matter of fact, the effective interest rate, the average interest rate for outstanding mortgages in the United States is 3.99. 95% of mortgages outstanding have a 30-year fixed rate. That's interesting because 20 years ago, that number was 70%. But with the inversion of the yield curve where, short-term rates are more expensive than long-term rates prevail today. And then here's another interesting thing. 63% of all mortgages outstanding were issued after 2018. So that's Dr. Stocks. That's their top 10. I'm going to share my top 10 slides. Some of them overlap. I'm doing it partially so you can see the slides. And so let's start to the first one, the one that I thought was most controversial. That's slide number 75 right here. This is where you can see how they're predicting a 10.8% appreciation next year. I don't know how we reverse the trend and then jump 10.8%. He makes the argument on the housing shortage. He makes the argument on housing formation and all these arguments on why there's a tailwind to housing. I just have a hard time believing it. But like I said, I'm not going to turn my back on him. Now, here's the next slide that caught my attention. These are in the order of how they caught my attention, by the way. 54% of consumers are saying this is a bad time to buy a house because of high mortgage rates and tight credit. That's our opportunity to change your opinion because the cost of waiting is exceptionally high. I don't care what the cost of homes are, what interest rates are. Your best investment long term is to set your house price today because your house will get cheaper every day with inflation. You can refinance the rate. You all know this. But the interesting thing on this chart is you look at this chart is how much that compares. Historically, looking at this chart, only around 20%, 10 to 20% typically think it's not a good time to buy. Put differently, 80 to 90% of U.S. consumers always think it's a good time to buy until we get to about 2 years ago. And then look at that huge spike. We went from, virtually 90% of consumers thought it was a great time to buy to less than half. And just look, that's unbelievable, that line right there. So that really caught my attention. The third thing that caught my attention is, which we've talked about before, is rent to ownership ratio. That is slide 80 right here. This is the home price to rent ratio. And that is, so how much. This just tries to give you a benchmark of the cost of renting versus the cost of buying. And so we've talked about this before. I found this to be super interesting. He already talked about this next slide, which caught my eye. That's slide 51 right here, slide 51. This is the median age of first-time homebuyers has increased from 30 in 2008 to 35 today. Interesting, right? And you can see the actual average age of repeat buyers is almost 60 right now. Isn't that crazy? So there you go. That's the trend lines on ages. I found that super interesting. Similar to that, the median of all home buyers now is 49 years old. That's slide 6 right here. So the median age of all home buyers is 49, super high. So we're dealing with our consumer has aged, right? The first-time home buyer is older. The repeat buyer is way older. The average age is far older than it used to be, right? From 31 to 49 on average. That's crazy. Here's the effective interest rate I was talking about, slide 21. Right here, effective interest outstanding mortgage rate is 3.9%. Very interesting. That's the average rate on outstanding debt. It's low. We all understand that. Here's that loan to value that I was talking about next. And I'm only going to do a couple more slides, by the way. You guys get it. I hope you go and look at all 21. But here's the loan to value ratio for U.S. mortgages. And that's for homes that have a mortgage. The outstanding mortgage, the average DTI is around 46%. That's what that's saying. That's different than the total equity in the United States because then you include the houses are owned free and clear, which is 73%. Let's go for this is another fascinating slide. I know we've talked about this before. That is slide number 101 right here. This is the house price for new homes versus existing homes. You can see where recently they intersected, where new homes became cheaper than existing homes. That's just a crazy phenomenon. But builders have started to shrink the footprint of their houses, and they've started to take some of the features away to make them more affordable. But a new home is now more affordable than an existing home, which is really super crazy. And as you talk about strange too, and this is one of my favorite topics, I might talk about this on another live. This is how long it takes to build the average single family house in the United States. It takes 8 months. Or put differently, it takes longer to build a house now than it did 50 years ago. And I read an interesting article, like I'm going to talk about this in another post, which the innovation stagnation in the United States, and we think innovation is unbelievable, but that's really limited to technology. If you think about houses houses cost more and take longer to build today and may or may not be better quality than they did 50 years ago. Really an interesting thing. And the last thing, which I'm just going to repeat what Torsten already called out, this is what the real estate agent productivity looks like. If you look at it over the last 24 years, 25 years, where they started, in going to the 2000s, selling about 50 sides a year. Now it's right around 20 and dropping. So there you go. That is Torsten Slocks. Let's go back here. That is Torsten Slocks and Apollo's U.S. housing outlook. It's a great data, as you saw, easy to consume. Take the time, go through all 20 pages, 21 slides. I put a link to it in my notes below. I did a LinkedIn post on it today. Make sure when you get back to the office, pull it up, study it, take what data you think you can apply, leverage it to be the expert in your market, in your sector. I think will really help you. With that, I hope you guys have a great